What if your breath could be the key to finding your voice? In today's conversation, Kat shares how breath work helped her to heal from past wounds, set boundaries, and take up space in her life again. Together, we explore how something so simple, breathing with awareness, can become a form of soft power, guiding us back to who we really are. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soft Power Project. Today, we're going to talk about our superpower that we often neglected and forgotten. And we have the founder of Breath Lab and Yoga Studio, Kat Lohmann. And she was from Costa Rica, but she currently resides in the United States. And she's going to tell us all about how she found her own superpower and how she's teaching women or kids or parents on how to actually adopt this and help everyone to regain our superpower. So, hi, Kat.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me and sharing your space with me to bring this information and create awareness about our superpower that everyone has.
Absolutely. I love that tagline. It is a superpower, and it is often neglected and forgotten. And I think I forgot about it for probably 40 years, and I just realized it these couple years. And I'm actually starting to teach my daughter on how to breathe, like actually breathe. So, and I loved how you talked about how this is a tool to coming home to yourself. And I wanted to ask you how it all started, how it became a tool for you to come home to yourself.
Yeah, my background is in physical therapies. So I'm always being intrigued and fascinated about how the body works and how it heals and moves and resilience in our body. But it was through my personal experiences as childhood traumas and my own experiences as a young adult that actually make me integrate all the information that I learned in college from the physiology and anatomy point of view to really clicking it in me and how I could connect this not just in physiology, let's say, but through my emotions and through the way that I was showing up in the world, in different decisions that I was taking and different paths that I was just kind of like flowing and not really like taking responsibility of myself. So it was kind of like my body giving me signs and hey, we have to work together with this. And for a long time, like I was trying to ignore those signs and those cues. And it was until I really pay attention to my body and start to know my body that the breath came as an anchor and say, okay, this is the link between your body and your emotions. Let's bring it together to take you home again. So it has been a whole like healing journey for me, but the breath has been kind of like my medicine in that sense.
Yeah. And it's a powerful medicine. You mentioned that you were, trying to ignore it for like all these signals and all these warning signs for a while. And then you started to really integrate that. I would like to ask you about your experience in kind of transitioning from trying to ignore it and recognizing it, because I think a lot of us is going through that. And even though it's such an easy thing, like we breathe, everyone has to breathe.
Yeah.
But how is it that we kept ignoring the importance of it And what's that transition like for you?
Well, I think a lot of, well, first of all, what I wanted to invite people to think is how many times a day or a week, a month, or in life you are being thinking about how do you breathe, like how you breathe.
Mm,
What is the way
yeah.
do you breathe in? As you said, most of the people like take it for granted, like breathing. Like, what do you mean that I have to learn to breathe? I breathe every day. What do you mean with that? One thing is, do you breathe because you are surviving? And another thing is, do you breathe and you pause and you consciously, intentionally use the breath to regulate yourself, to calm yourself, to take action and no reaction about
Mm-hmm.
situations that could stress you or could create some kind of like moment that you feel uncomfortable or you feel anger or you feel so
Mm-hmm.
how we can learn and be aware of our breath to actually use it for connected to our present moment, so we have more power for the way that we show up ourselves in different aspects in our lives and for us as well. That's something that I want the people to think about. How many times do you think about breathing? And for me, in my experience, I start taking connection with my own body to learning about my period. And that doesn't have me much to do with the breath, but was like kind of like the first time that I saw myself and I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything about me. Just learning about my period and the cycles and how to read like my fluids and do
Mm-hmm.
all like the lunar calendar and like the moon calendar and things like that. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything about myself. So I start with a lot of curiosity, getting in tune with all that. And I stopped taking birth control pills.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of like unveil a lot of emotions that I was numbing by the control pills. And
Mm-hmm.
mm, f- from that, I start getting in tune with my body and then I start feeling. One of the things that I had that I create a shell on myself was feeling. I didn't like to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And especially I didn't like to feel emotions that make me feel pain or make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So when I start experimenting all this fluctuation of my cycle and I start noticing that one week I was one person and the other week I was another one and the other,
Mm-hmm.
I start all this like emotions that I was kind of like putting some makeup and numbing myself by not feeling it when you're taking a birth control. They start to come in this in the surface, and it was a lot to handle. It was a lot to handle, and I started noticing those cues about that in some situations when I was taking maybe when I was saying maybe yes when I wanted to say no, or when I want to go to a different path, but something just keep me stuck in this, I start feeling this sensation that I couldn't breathe. And I was just, and it was kind of like my body telling me, hey, it's not over there. You have to go over here. But I start to feel this like moments, like little moments of anxiety when I was having this like press in my chest. And I was like, oh, I can't breathe. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, in the beginning, for me, it was just ignoring that signs because I didn't know what it means and I never paid too much attention to that. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm just too hot. Maybe I just need fresh air and try to distract myself with, I don't know, like reading a book or listen music or watching a show or whatever. And I was just ignoring those. Those were kind of like my first times that I was experienced. I cannot breathe.
Uh,
That's how I start. And then I think I always been a seeker. I always been a seeker in the way of when I start my healing journey, I always wanted to kind of fulfill that emptiness that I was feeling inside myself outside. So I was going to different types of religions and cultures and different ways to live just because I wanted to learn. And also I think I have this fascination of learning. So I always go very deep in the things that I like and enjoy. So I start going to like different like Zen and Hinduism and Hare Krishnas and I'm coming from a very religion family, but my family is very Catholic. I never really enjoy going to church because I was very disagree in a lot of aspects. So I was like, I don't believe 100% of this. So I always have this kind of like necessity to fulfill this that I saw in my mom that she was like very have a lot of faith and have a lot of like, and I was like, I don't have that.
mm,
So I was looking at it in
yeah.
the outside, and it's getting to a point when anxiety keep growing and growing and growing in me, and I get into a point that I was having a lot of like anxiety very high, and I experiment panic attacks as well. And that's when the breath actually was like, okay, just start here. Start with your breath and one breath at a time. And I didn't know what I was doing. Like, honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just had this voice that said to me, if you are living, it's because you're breathing. Start here. And that was the point in my life that the breath came to rescue me and to actually make me reclaim this birthright that every one of us has. Because something that I understand about the breath was when we come to this world outside of the womb of our mom, the first sign that a doctor wants to see or a doula wants to see in a baby is the baby's breathing. So you come to this world with inhalation, with one inhalation, and then you cry. That means that you come through the inhalation and cry, you come to experiment emotions. That's something very important that I understand, like with my own experience. And then when you leave this world, you leave with an
Mm.
exhalation. So that's what I call the breath. It is a portal. It's the portal that anchor us to be here in the present and actually experience emotions. That is what we come to experience in this school of earth. And this school of earth, that's where we come to experiment here emotions and experience and different like cycles and be like the earth, right? The earth has cycles too. I think I went like too profound on
Yeah.
that, but it's kind of like what I feel and what I understand through my experience with the breath.
Yeah. No, I love that. I never thought about breath work and our emotions and our action and how is that has anything to do with each other, but it does. And everything needs to be in an alignment. And when we're out of alignment, we're not feeling, we're not breathing properly as well. And I love your analogy, when we come to this earth, we inhale in, and it's through that we get to feel all these emotions. So that connection between feeling the emotion fully and breathing fully, that seems incredibly powerful. And I think that's something that we don't often feel, because I think when I first realized that I wasn't breathing properly, like you said, I felt this tightness in my chest and I was having anxiety attack. And everyone just telling me, you got to breathe. And I'm like, what do you mean breathe? Like I am breathing. And that was really when I found out that, oh, I'm not really breathing. Like I actually don't know how to breathe, and there are some proper ways and tools to do so. So I think through your work, how you advocate this importance of breath work, and what are the things that you notice that people are kind of missing when it comes to just honestly realizing we do have the superpower?
Yeah. The first thing that I wanted to bring with my work to people is to create awareness, right? Because with awareness, you could start what you cannot see, you cannot transform, right? So if you start learning about this and know the importance about this and how powerful this is when you kind of like pay attention and you are like, okay, I want to invite people to have curiosity about the way that they breathe, because my experience of breathing might not be the same as your experience of breathing. What is the breath that is good for me might not be that good for you, right? So, because everybody has different situations and different experiences in life, right? And in order for us to use the breath as a tool, I mean, could be for relax and calm our nervous systems, or could be for a moment that we need to run a marathon, or when we're doing
Mm-hmm.
exercise,
Mm-hmm.
or we have an important meeting in our job, and we need to be relaxed, but at the same time have energy to talk and be very clear about the message that we want to deliver. We could use breathwork for, so we can energize ourselves, or we could calm down ourselves, or we can keep it in the middle. Depends on what we need.
Mm-hmm.
But for us to get to that point that we can use the breath in different types of things, depends on what
Mm-hmm.
we need to create awareness and know where we at through the breath. Like where we at through the breath, it means what is my way to breathe in. And from then we can start transforming that. So something that I want to invite the people is to ask, just place one hand in your chest and one hand in your belly. And without changing everything, just be curious and see how you breathe in. When you breathe, the hand in your belly move, or the hand in your chest move? Like which one? How are you breathing, with your chest or with your belly? That's that's the way to start, like the first step, let's say. And from there, you're like, oh, okay. Most of the people, when we start this uh, retraining, let's say like retraining, sometimes they breathe up in the chest.
Yeah, I think I do too.
They
Mm-hmm.
breathe in the chest, and they're like, oh, I think the hand that is moving is this one, right? They do
Mm-hmm.
kind of like this
Yep.
movement. And I was like, okay, this is good. That's where we have to start. Well, and another one is, do you breathe with your nose, like through your nose, or through your mouth? Because that's another, like that's a very simple too, but
Mm-hmm.
for some people it's very difficult to breathe through your nose, through the nose. Could be for physiological reasons. Could be for like anatomical reasons. And that's something that they have to work with a specialist to correct that. But if you have the pattern of breathing through your mouth, that's gonna influence also the way that you feel.
Mm.
So that's another thing that people has to be aware, like where I'm breathing and how I'm breathing.
Yeah.
The most natural way to breathe is through your nose and in your belly. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
see a baby, like a newborn, you see their bellies are up and down, up and down, up and down. And they breathe very rapidly because they have the heart rate is like going super fast because they are little and they are developing like every
Yeah.
single moment so they are kind of like in a fast developing growing stage all the time. So that's why they are like breathing so fast all the time, but you could see their bellies are like all
Yeah,
the time.
that's true.
So that's kind of like our natural way to breathe. Through your nose with your belly. Through your nose, like the nose is for breathing for a reason. Like it has all the celiacs that filter the air that coming in that help you to like they have some kind of like turbines inside to help the air that coming in to warm up a little bit before going down to your lungs. And also you humectate the air so you don't get super dry.
Mhm.
It also increase your sense of taste. Like think about when you were sick and you were congested, you kind of your food
Yeah.
doesn't taste like
Yeah, you can't
much.
taste anything.
So
Yeah.
help for that. Help also to catch toxicity. Like for example, if you use a stove with gas, if it's like leaking, you can smell it and you can react and survive, right? Things like that. So the nose is very important because of that. It's not just about breathing, it's about also like helping us in different ways. If you breathe through your mouth, there are a lot of situations that could develop because of that. You're not filtering air, like breathing whatever.
Yeah. Right.
You probably don't gonna have a very good taste because your mouth gonna be dry. You don't gonna be salivating that much. That create cavities. That create problems in your gums. That is a lot of like your posture also. If you're breathing with your mouth, you're kind of like this. So your chin is like kind of like protrude.
Uh,
And for kids, for example, it's very important to be aware of that because they could develop the chin just like that, just because they have this.
yeah, yeah.
And also, it's not good for the nervous system because it kind of tell to the nervous system that you are in dangers. Right? Think about
Mm.
when you run because maybe you're doing exercise and sometimes just breathing with the nose is not enough. So you're kind of like, right? So if you're breathing like that all the time, it's kind of like you're telling to your body, like, I am in danger.
Mhm. Mhm.
So sometimes for people to understand, then I say, like, well, we have kind of like three types of breathing. The first one is when you voluntarily use the breath for something, like for example, to blow some bubbles, or you blow the candle, or you took and like you playing an instrument like a flute or saxophone or something. So you voluntarily, like you are deciding intentionally to use your breath for that, right? So that's one type of breathing, or when you do snorkel, scuba dive, or things like that. That's one type of breathing. The other type of breathing is like no voluntarily, and that's what is connect with fight and fly. So it's that reaction of the nervous system that tell you you need to run or you need to fight or you need to freeze, right? That's straightly related with stress or pain. And then the other one is the autonomic type of breathing. That one is the one that we do every single day and we don't even think about. The problem is that most of the people are stuck in fight or flight all the time. So when you are stuck 24/7 in fight or flight, everyday breathing becomes stress breathing. So you develop a pattern that is normal for you, but that doesn't mean that it's good or it's sustainable for your body. So when you
Right.
create,
So what does stress breathing looks like?
well, you feel this, you're breathing with your chest. is a very superficial breathing. You're kind of like hyperventilating all the time. Like think about when you have a stressful moment in your life, a stressful situation in your life. How is your disposition in your body like that? You can like get your shoulders tight, your chest is tight, you breathing kind of like fast,
Mm-hmm.
almost like hyperventilating, and you kind of like are in this alert mode that anything that somebody tell you, you're like ah, you kind of explode, right? You kind of like
Mm.
because you are kind of like defending yourself. You're in this mode of something's going to happen. So when you are in that mode all the time, your breathing pattern became normal, just breathing like that. And when you have this breathing pattern for your everyday life, is when you have to bring awareness to this and say, oh, okay, I've been stuck in this for a while, how I could transform this. And that's when awareness
Mm-hmm.
came, the most important part. And we start breathing like that. Where are you breathing? Through, like where through I'm breathing, and be just like aware of that things. And then we start working on very simple things that you could do every single day. Like for example, stick your
Mm-hmm.
nose and
Sticky notes.
stick your
Yeah.
nose
Mm-hmm.
and put it like, I don't know, in front of your computer or in the mirror in the bathroom. So every time that you go to the bathroom and you're washing your hands and you look at yourself in the bathroom, you have a note that says breathe. And breathe is take a deep breath with your belly, right? So intentionally, you start working on how I can breathe the air all the way down through my belly.
Mm.
When we go to the gym and we start working on our biceps or our legs
Yeah.
or our glutes, right? And we start doing
Mm-hmm.
weight training for developed muscle. We could work also in weight training for our breath. The principal
Mm.
and most important muscles for the respiratory system is the diaphragm. The lungs are the organ, of course, where all the gas interchange happens, right? The oxygen becomes like all that is in the pulmon and in the organ, but they actually are not a muscle. They have the strength to compress or elongate or do all the movement. The muscle that is in charge of that is the diaphragm, and the diaphragm is I'm just gonna put this is actually like
Mm-hmm.
here. Let's say that this is
Right.
like the ribs in here. So the diaphragm is just in here. So it's not that you have to like breathe with your belly in here. It's this
Mm-hmm.
section. It's kind of like the upper section of your
Right.
belly.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
diaphragm.
So for anyone who couldn't see it, it's like right, like, would you say it's like kind of in the stomach area?
Yeah, it's like over your belly bottom.
Right.
Kind of like
Okay.
placing your hand over your belly bottom, like kind of like this
I see.
space between the following the ribs, let's say, and up in the belly bottom. That's the place
Mm-hmm.
where the
Okay.
diaphragm is. So we want to train that muscle for you in order to use your full capacity for your lungs to get oxygen and then bring all this circulatory response, lower your heart rate, lower your blood pressure. You gain
Mm-hmm.
more oxygen in your brain, so you have more clarity, you have more focus, you have this a little more time between your emotion and your reaction, so you could control yourself and actually have this little time of oh, okay, I'm gonna breathe and instead of saying whatever you want to say, you could just breathe and just have these little moments of transformation in different situations in your life. So it's a whole chain of physiology snowball things that you could control, as the same way that if you start with a thought that makes you angry and you start getting angry and maybe getting resentful and then getting like in you snowballing go like very down.
Mhm.
Same thing, you could
Mhm.
start bringing this awareness and create all these changes inside yourself that tell your nervous system you're safe, you don't have to fight, you don't have to run,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you could give your heart a break and start feeling better.
Mm.
That doesn't mean that the situation gonna go away. That doesn't mean that your trauma gonna go away. That doesn't mean that the problem that you have with your boss or your partner or whatever doesn't gonna be there, but that's gonna give you
Mhm.
control over your emotions to don't be in this fight or flight, instead just be a little more receptive and have more clarity and more responsibility about how I'm gonna handle this.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I wish I knew you like 20, 30 years ago because I'm having a revelation because I used to dance ballet ever since I was, I don't know, 5 to like for like a decade or even more. And even though I wasn't a professional, but I danced like 3, 4 times a week. And all I remember is that because I danced so much, and then because I thought I had to hold this posture. So I'm always like holding my breath. I'm always breathing here because I didn't want to ruin the line, because it's all about the line. You have to look really lean about ballet. And I wasn't taught that how do you breathe? And obviously breathing was incredibly important when it comes to movement, but I was holding my breath all the time. And like you said, I got so used to that and carry that in my entire life. And it wasn't until these recent years that I realized I was always, holding my breath in my chest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that is important that we start teaching to kids, because I wish that somebody could tell me how to breathe. So if you start learning that as a kid, for example, as in my experience, like I love the example that you bring about ballet and how you hold your breath because of the posture, right? You probably like if you somebody teach you how to breathe in that moment, you could still hold the posture, but without holding your breath. Like for me, in my experience and with trauma, I learned that I was holding my breath because as a kid, I had a very traumatic experience when I have to just,
Hmm.
I kind of like swallow what happened. And my survival mode in that moment was be quiet and hold my breath, right? Because I have to like get it together as a kid, as a kid at 7, 8
Mm,
years
my
that
goodness.
didn't know
Hmm.
how to react to this. So kind of like going supreme in like right, all my emotions and everything. And I kind of learned to do that in very and I guess stressful moments in my life. I always kind of like freeze myself and hold it. And even if I wasn't agree about what it was happening, because that was the way that in that moment helped me to
Yeah.
survive that issue in my life. Like if I am very thankful for my nervous system that was the way that I react for me to be functional in life, to keep growing and keep being like a normal kid, right? And having friends and be funny and all that. But I kind of like forgot about what happened, and that was my survival instinct. But that trap of emotions were there. And that's what I had to learn how to work as I grew up and starting in my 20s, and I start feeling all these cycling things. So it was very interesting. Like I see it now, and it is very interesting how we could learn things from being kids and just stay there in our subconscious. For example, things like when you say, if you have a boy and he cries and you said like, oh, boys don't cry, right? And this kid gonna just, yeah, be strong, the boys don't cry. The boys start growing up, and then when they have emotions, they have to let go. And the most fascinating thing that we could do for let go is just cry. It's like
Yeah.
a cry is witness, right? Is associated with witness, and that's the story that this kid has. Witness, or that's too feminine, or like things like that. Like sometimes culturally or in society, depends on the way that you're raised. I'm raised in Latin America, and that's something that it was maybe now is less, but it was very strong in that culture, right? The boys don't cry. So, and for me, even though I was a girl, but I was raised also with this thought of don't cry, because when you cry, you look ugly. Like if you cry, you look ugly. You're going to have wrinkles. You're going to have wrinkles if you
Oh, yeah.
cry.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I had this information, and also that situation that happened to me. So I was like, okay, okay, I just have to hold it together because I cannot cry. And also I wasn't speaking to say what
Yeah.
happened. So I just learned to hold my emotions and hold my breath.
Right.
So it's so interesting. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful how we do things sometimes in a just subconscious level that we are not aware of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating how our body keeps track of it. And no matter how young we were, we keep track of it. I would like to ask you is that now, I mean, these are incredible, beautiful lessons that I think everyone can benefit from. But through your practice, your own journey of healing, understanding how to use breath work and actually witnessing the change in your clients, how has the magic of breath work changed your life?
The first thing that changed in my life was to validate my voice.
Mm.
And you could think how breath gonna do that? Well, working through with breath work through with my emotions is how I could actually liberate those emotions and let it out, and I could speak up my my truth and finally
Mm.
talk about that trauma that I have when I was a kid, and that brings a lot of like a healing process in my life that teach me my voice is important. There was nothing wrong with me because I held a lot of like kind of guilt in some way, shame, frustration, fear, anger, and all those emotions were trapped over there. And as a teenager, I was being like very friendly and had a lot of friends and very fun, things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
when I was with myself, my therapy was right. I was writing all the time. But the writing that I was doing by then were very dark. Like they were full of anger, full of rage, like full of like resentment in some way. Even though in my subconscious I kind of block that experience that I had, it was kind of like my way to express myself and all that repression that I had. So when I finally could talk about that, because allowed myself to feel the emotion that I was feeling, it kind of like bring my voice again to speak up and start just saying what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
also that makes me, well, with time, it's not that everything happened at the same time, right? And then I start talking and I started seeing things that I didn't wasn't agree. And then this feeling of freezing again come to me and I was more aware of that. So it kind of give me the permission to set up boundaries now, right? And and I love the way that in my experience I could understand boundaries and breath because the breath is your own first boundary that you have.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like internally, from your inside to the outside, if I allowed my lungs to go full capacity and expansion, that's my inner space. So that's my first boundary that I have inside of me. I like to think about how I'm breathing, I am living. So if I allowed myself to expand in full capacity, I could go in a room and take the space that I deserve because that's my full like energy, like in my aura. I let it span and come back to me. And I am not afraid to do that. Even though sometimes I kind of like struggle with that, I am allowing myself to go inside a room and take my space without permissions and without feeling that I'm accommodating to anybody or I'm feeling like make anybody to feel uncomfortable because this is me and this is my space and this is the way that I'm breathing. So it's not just a boundary inside of me and how much I allow myself to grow and to think and to visualize and to manifest. It's also the way physically I could go and this is me. Hello world. So like things like that that in the past for me I was shrinking myself. Even though when I have things to share and valuable probably things to express, I was just like, maybe I just gonna stay quiet because who cares, right? Like that was kind of my, or I was afraid, for example, like my first language is Spanish and I started working in this company where we have meetings and most of the meetings were in English because I was working for a company from US. And sometimes we go to this like marketing meetings and people start sharing points of view. And like for me was like, oh, maybe we could do this and this and this. But then we're gonna pay attention to this 25 years old from Costa Rica, right? Like things like that. That now, like I see myself and I was like, wow, I should have get so much opportunities if I was just like going for it, right? And bring my creativity and all my experience and the things that I want to like share with people. But I think that was another thing. Like my voice is important, my own boundaries with myself and with other people. So this is my boundary to be, but this is the boundary also for you to come in or you stay out, right? So how I'm going to allow another person to come into my life or how I just going to say no. No, I don't like that. No, I don't like your attitude. No, this is not what I wanted to do. No, I am not going to participate in this. And that's another thing that from my trauma as a kid, I I didn't say no. Because first of all, I was a kid. And second of all, it was an adult that is kind of like superior like because it's bigger than me and everything. And I didn't know how to say no. And even though I know that that was not right, but that also marked us. Like as a kid, like a lot of things as a kid mark us in the way that we show up in ourselves as an adult. So for me, saying no to somebody, even when I wanted to say no, was very difficult.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was just doing a lot of work for a lot of people when I wanted to say no, or in my relationship that I started having uh with like romantic partners also. Sometimes I didn't want it and I was just doing it just because I didn't know how to say no. Like very simple things like that. I think the breath has like showing me, hey, no, like, no, it's okay. No is a full answer. And you could, and you respect that from somebody, and another person has to respect you. And if he doesn't respect you, who cares? You respect yourself and you make that no to be firm. So I think that's another thing that breath
Mm-hmm.
helped me, and also to don't shrink myself. And I always been like super curious about astrology and things like that. And as a kid also, we're like, no, this is not real. That's not good. You need more connection with God, or to get out of the church, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was also kind of like caught in my curiosity for other topics that really intrigue me. And now I'm just like, if something is like fascinating me, I just go for it. Like I don't have to ask for permission.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I loved how you talked about, it's really validating your own voice and using breath. It's about setting that boundary with yourself, with others. And I loved how you talked about the expansion because I love that word. And I think so many of us is caught in this like tying our self-worth to something outside, which is like money, title, and all that, accomplishment, but it's about just simply existing. Like we can actually take up space just being us, just breathing. Like we can take up space. And I love that you talked about that because I think there's so much of us that eventually when we come home to ourselves, it's about that expansion itself. And I think it's just so incredible that breath work has it is indeed a superpower and it's so ingrained in us and it has so much tied to our emotion and how we even talk to ourselves. But through this amazing work that you really get to just complete this alignment. And I just wanted to kind of finish off our episode. I mean, I can talk about this with you for so long and so, part two, part three, but I would love to know your definition of soft power, especially through your work in the breath work.
Yeah, I thought about that question, and I mean, it cannot be anything outside of breath, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a soft power. And that's a definition of breath. It is soft power because, first of all, it's something that came with us since we were born. But it's soft because hold us our whole life, and it's just an inhalation that invites expansion in our life, that nurtures, and it's an exhalation that invites us to just let go and release. And also it's a different type of expansion. Like inhalation is an expansion inside of us that nurtures us and let us this space, right? But the exhalation also, when you release and let go, it's kind of like an expansion from outside also. It's just going from in to out. It's so powerful, but because could transform us in a lot of ways, that is a power that doesn't shout. That doesn't shout. It's a power that invite us to just dance with this balance of inner and outer world. So that's what I call it, a portal, because the breath is actually, it is a portal that could help us in this physical life to connect what is physical for us, which is our body and this suit or flesh and bones, but connect our inner cosmos, right? Our inner world, energetically talking, but also let us to melt in this other space where we belong, which is the universe itself. We're like the microcosmos of the macrocosmos, and it's so powerful that you could just transcend in these different planes if we allow it to guide us in this. So that's kind of like my definition of self power. It's maybe a little abstract, but it's an invitation for experimenting yourself, because that's the only way that you could actually know if something is good for you or not, right? I could talk in a very spiritual way or in a very kind of like esoteric way about the breath, because it's something that I've been experiencing in this, but nobody have to believe me. So my invitation is for the people to get curious and give them the chance to experience how, if you actually pay attention and intentionally connect with your breath, how this breath could intentionally connect you with your body, and then both together just blow your mind, like literally just blow your mind.
Yeah. No, I love that. And yeah, it is abstract, but I think there's a beauty in it. And then I think exactly like you said, that this is why I'm doing soft power, is that it is abstract and then you can interpret it however you want. But essentially, it kind of all goes back to that one thing. And it is about really discovering yourself and be curious about that. Like, who are you? Take off all the armor and all the mask that you have put on over the years. Who are you? And through breath work and through just breathing and exhaling and expanding, I think that you get to really understand that. And I think I love that. It's about time that we do actually appreciate the abstract, the uncertainty or the, not specific, or something that we get to explain and be curious and find out ourselves. And thank you so much for that. I absolutely loved
That's
it. I feel like there's so much that we can talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of like meaning of breath lab. It's a breath lab as a laboratory for you to experiment with your body yourself. So it's just with curiosity to experience in your own laboratory, that is your body inside you, how the breath could actually chemically and spiritually and emotionally react with all this fluctuation. It's going to be your own journey and your own experience, and is all yours. And everybody gonna have different journeys and different experience, and it's all good, because that's the richness of all together, but in uniqueness. It's so beautiful, so pure also.
It is. It is. Everyone should really follow Kat, and I'm going to put her information in the description box. She has a lot of really effective tools. Actually, I saved a lot of your posts and I do
Thank
follow
you.
them. And I teach my daughter because she recently had pneumonia. So she was having a hard time breathing at night, coughing a lot. And I was like, okay, it's really the time that I teach her how, power of breath, because sometimes there's not much you can do. You're going to have to like flow with it. You take your meds, but that's it. Learn how to breathe and breathe properly. So I think this is going to benefit a lot of people. So feel free to check her out. I loved your work, and I really would love that we can do another part 2, part 3, even on just small workshop on how do we cope to stress, like how do we breathe, like any like small tips that we can have. Let's say we go to important meetings, how do we breathe before the meeting or presentation? I think that would be like incredible as well.
That sounds great. We could do one for just little tools for different situations. That would be awesome.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. All right.
Yeah, thank you very much for
Yeah,
this.
thank you.